Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David, and welcome to our listeners to episode 284. And we're welcoming our listeners around the country and around the world and throughout the galaxy. Yay. And we have a special guest again, because today we're doing another Ask David, and we're having, you're going to all enjoy the wisdom of Matt May on our podcast again today. Hi, Matt.
Back by popular demand, I might say.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's great to be with you both.
Yeah, it's so fun. I thought I'd start off with reading an endorsement about our episode 278, which was on Buddhist strategies for financial abundance, featuring Zaina Halem. And this was somebody named Brian, and Brian wrote in and said, this is another great podcast covering a topic that we don't often hear about in CBT, money and business. These are great insights from Zaina, but I also very much appreciated David's little interlude about the reality of knowing when you have to charge clients as well as when not to charge clients. As a small business owner, I know there are plenty of clients out there who take advantage of a reluctance to charge. Anyway, thank you so much, David, Rhonda, and Zaina. This is amazing, as always. Brian.
Well, thank you, Brian, and we appreciate the kind emails you folks send us, and we occasionally get burned with a critical email, not very often, but we deeply, deeply appreciate the thoughtfulness and positivity and support that so many of you are presenting. I've mentioned a couple of times recently that when you spread by word of mouth, if you like the Feeling Good podcast, it really helps us because we don't have a marketing budget or a budget for much of anything. And so you're our only marketing salespeople, I might say. And last month, we had our biggest month, that was January, ever. We had over 138,500 downloads. And now we're about, the day we're recording this is February 15th. We're halfway through February, and we may hit 140,000 downloads this month, even though it's a short month. So the numbers are going up. So thank you, all of you, for that. And if you know somebody who's down or depressed, tell them about the Feeling Good podcast. Or if you know therapists who want to learn about team therapy, we'd love to have you listening to our podcast as well.
I have some homework to go back and listen to that podcast with Zaina. I've had the good fortune of doing a lot of training and work with her, and I'm just so impressed with her skills. And now I want to know her secrets to Buddhist wealth. So I have to go back for that one.
Yeah, it's a karma type of deal where what you give to the universe kind of gives back to you, and there's certainly a lot of truth in that, and most Buddhist teachings that give what you hope to receive, and it's really a neat podcast. She's a neat person, and she's always talking about how much she's learned from you, Matt, in your supervision.
Appreciate that from her.
Mm-hmm. So are you ready to dive into a question?
We are ready.
Okay, so Carolyn asks, I've done cost benefit analyses for many of my self-defeating beliefs, and the disadvantages greatly outweigh the advantages. What's my next step? Hi, David. I finally got all my cost benefit analysis for my self-defeating beliefs done. I have a ton of them. I also did a cost benefit analysis, or a CBA, on self-acceptance and a CBA on self-criticism. I found out that the disadvantages of my self-defeating beliefs are massively higher than the advantages. Only with self-acceptance, the advantages were much higher than the disadvantages. Now that I've got all these cost-benefit analysis done, what do I do with my findings? Do I rewrite my self-defeating beliefs into something more realistic, or let's say into something to do with acceptance? Thank you for your help.
Well, I'll give you guys first dibs on this one. Carolyn is a very intelligent woman who's been listening to the podcast for some time, and I know that Carolyn does a ton of work too on anything that we talk about or suggestions that we've made. She really follows through on it, and it's just been a joy to see that. And so Carolyn has asked a great question. We could even focus it too, like we could say focus on the achievement addiction that so many people believe. My worthwhileness depends on my productivity and my achievements, and then talk about the 4-step process for modifying a self-defeating belief. But let me give you folks first shot at this super important question.
Matt?
So if we focus on thoughts like my worth is my productivity or success or achievements. So if that's the self-defeating belief, and she's done a cost benefit analysis on that, and the disadvantages are outweighing the advantages, meaning she might be telling herself, basing my worth on my success as an advantage, like it'll motivate me to work harder, and maybe that'll lead to greater success. But she may be finding more disadvantages on the other side, which she never feels like it's enough. She's on a treadmill, and no matter how much she succeeds, she discounts it, and she still feels worthless or lacking in confidence. And so if she's got very convincing arguments against the advantages and the downsides of this belief system, are pointing in a direction of changing this belief system so that she could feel better, a couple of next steps could be useful for her. One would be the acid test, where you'd ask yourself, would you be willing to feel worthwhile with your current level of success? And if she can explain why she would want that, then you could go into methods, and the idea would be to fail as rapidly as possible at different methods until she discovers the one that's most helpful to her. But if the agenda setting has been really solid, it's probable that she'll get success in just a few methods, like identify the distortions or the straightforward technique, etc.
Those are all great ideas. Often as a second step, I use the semantic technique just to get intellectual change, and then we can follow that up with emotional change. But if you're going to give up the belief, my worthwhileness depends on my productivity and achievements, what new belief are you going to substitute for that one? What are you going to tell yourself instead? We need a new value system that will keep all the advantages of that achievement addiction, but at the same time to get rid of most, if not all, of the disadvantages. So what would be a new belief that we could have for ourselves instead of my worthwhileness depends on my productivity and achievements? What is my worthwhileness going to depend on then?
And what is worthwhileness?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one there, Matt. Tell us about that.
Well, it may just be an overrated concept that doesn't exist, this idea of worth and worthwhileness, that we thought we had to have it, but it doesn't exist. We can't point to it anywhere. We're just imagining that it's something we need.
Yeah. I love that. Like I think I mentioned that I had this ridiculous fantasy about halfway through my psychiatry career that if I could only get a great coach, I could make the Olympic table tennis team.
Oh, yeah.
You remember? And
yeah.
And I hired this guy. I gave up my practice for about a year and hired this guy and did semi-full-time table tennis training. And we had this ball machine in the garage and an Olympic table, and he gave me 20 hours a week of training. And he was one of the top players. He was the Caribbean champion. He had just moved to Philadelphia. But it was just really fun. I never got that good. I was just too old, I'm afraid, to develop that really fantastic ability that these world-class players, I think you have to start from childhood to get that kind of rhythm and muscle understanding of how to do it at that high level. But it was fun, and I used to think, suppose somebody walked into the garage where we're slamming the ball back and forth and having a good old time and saying, "Oh, Dr. Burns, we just determined that you're not a worthwhile human being." I would say, "Okay, that's fine, but I'm just too busy having fun right now. Maybe we could talk about it some other time."
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of makes the point in my mind that, like, the point of life is not to become some worthwhile human being, but to enjoy life and to connect with people in a meaningful way, and to love your cat and to pet your cat and to hang out with friends. It's just to give up on this idea of worthwhileness. And we can tell ourselves, I love being productive. I love achieving things. And sometimes I'll be very successful, and sometimes I'll fail entirely. I'll fall flat on my face, and most of the times it'll be somewhere in between. But that it's not going to make me more or less worthwhile. If I'm doing something and loving it and enjoying it, like I'm loving working on the app, it's just so much fun. I don't know how effective or successful it's going to be. It might be commercially successful and make $1 billion, or it might be a complete fiasco in the market and not sustain enough income to continue with our staff and to support ourselves. But it's not going to make me more or less worthwhile either way. So I better just enjoy what I'm doing, because that's where the joy of life is. It's the process of being alive and being with people. But this worthwhileness isn't going to get you a cup of tea in Chinatown.
Mm-hmm. So would an alternative or a more positive way of saying it be something like, I like getting things done, or I like doing things. I like finishing projects. I like making a difference. And when I do those things, I feel good. And if I don't finish them, if I hadn't made a difference, I'm going to give myself a break today and try again tomorrow.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of ways for me to find joy, and achieving and being productive is just one of many, many things. Life is a banquet. It's all kind of offerings in this banquet. And if you're just focusing on one food, you'll get overdosed on that one food and get tired of it after a while. But
could we suggest to Carolyn that she do the experimental technique and try and create an experiment to test the validity of her self-defeating beliefs?
I love that idea. Maybe using the pleasure predicting sheet. Schedule a bunch of activities with the potential for pleasure, learning, personal growth, whatever, and predict how satisfying between 0 and 100 each activity will be. And this is a multi-column form. I can put it in the show notes for those who want to download and use this pleasure predicting sheet. I've done it once before in a previous podcast. If you go to my website, or if you just go to Google actually and Google Dr. Burns's pleasure predicting sheet, it'll come up immediately, and you can print it and use it. And you may find that many things that don't involve productivity or achievement or some phenomenal accomplishment are extremely rewarding, and other things that you're slaving away at aren't that terribly rewarding. And so you can prove to yourself through an experiment that your capacity for happiness does not rely on achieving things at some high level. Can you think of any other experiments or tools, Matt? We can do a feared fantasy also.
Yeah, the feared fantasy is a good one. I oftentimes would start with something a little lighter, like the double standard.
Oh, yeah.
I would ask her to imagine a twin sitting across from her who's also feeling like really, worthless or defective or inadequate, and buying into this idea that she's just not worthwhile. I'm not successful enough. Might be the thought, or I haven't achieved enough. And then to ask, would she tell her friend that, hey, you're worthless? Did you know that you're worthless?
Yeah.
Or would she hold back, and would she have a different message that she might offer instead that would be kinder and more accepting? And then that could be her new replacement thought.
I love that, Matt, just treating this thing with kindness and compassion, because many people do think that worthwhileness exists and that somehow they've got to be so productive in order to have this mysterious thing called worthwhileness. And then some people have and do commit suicide, sadly, because they think they're not productive enough. They're not making enough money. They're making $40,000, but to be worthwhile, I'd have to be making a salary of $80,000. So I'm going to kill myself. And I remember one of my first severe depressed patients I treated when I was first learning cognitive therapy was a young woman who'd been hospitalized involuntarily in mental hospitals because she would slash her wrists with razor blades and cut herself. And she had had many relatives in her family who had committed suicide, and her dad brought her to me for a consultation to see, if this new, in those days, this new cognitive therapy might have any promise. And one of her thoughts was, I'm a lazy human being, so I deserve to die. And what she meant was she was just getting high school through tutors in the mental hospital. She'd been hospitalized for several years. And these were the days where you could hospitalize severe people for years. And somehow they thought this was going to help somebody. And so she was thinking, boy, all the other kids my age are doing things and achieving things, and I'm just vegetating here. So I'm a worthless human being because I'm not achieving anything. So I deserve to die. That was one of the most impacting individuals I've ever worked with. And, it made a huge effect on me emotionally to work with that young lady and help her turn her life around. But these beliefs are not trivial. They really can cause death as well as tremendous demoralization. Should we demonstrate the feared fantasy? Why
not? It's fun.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Well, the way the feared fantasy works is to show you the absurdity of this idea that our worthwhileness depends on our achievements. You want to set it up, Matt?
Sure. Well, I could play. Actually, David, is it okay? Could I invite you to play the critic from hell?
Yeah.
Who would be wildly successful and have achieved tremendous things, like you're on the cover of Time and Forbes magazine, and
exactly, perfect.
And then Rhonda, would you want to be struggling with your sense of worth?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is people. This is going to be a humor-based and pretty absurd technique, but it's to get at the idea: is it really true that people who have achieved more are more worthwhile? See, Carolyn has said it's not to my advantage to think that. We've done experiments. We've done to see if it's true. We've done the semantic technique. And the feared fantasy is we're going to meet somebody who has indeed achieved a tremendous amount, more than we have, and we're going to find out if it's true that that person is superior. And I'll start out. And should I be the critic from hell?
Yeah, let's meet. Yes, or we could meet at our high school reunion.
Sure. Yeah. And I was in your high school class, and I've achieved all these things. And I drive up to the reunion in a chauffeur-driven limousine. My picture was just on the cover of Time magazine, and I come in with my handlers and bodyguards, and there's a long line of people waiting to get my autograph. And now it's your turn to talk to me in line, Rhonda. And Rhonda, good to see you. Yeah, I don't actually remember you. I guess you were in my high school class, huh?
Oh yeah, we because our last names are similar. I'm BAR and you're BUR. We used to sit next to each other in our math class.
Oh, I don't continue. I don't recall you. I was, as you know, the captain of the football team and the president of the class and the valedictorian. And so I hung out with the beautiful people. I don't think I ever hung out with you, though.
Well, I wasn't a class officer like you, and I did swim on the swim team, but I wasn't really that great at it. I just kind of did it for fun.
Oh yes, I broke world records in my swimming, and since graduation from high school, I mean, things have kind of turned to gold. Everything I've touched, so to speak. And did you catch me on the cover of Time magazine?
Gosh, I missed that issue.
It's this week's, and I'm selling them with my autograph for $15 if you're interested. You should get them. All the getting's good. But there's this one thing I want to mention to you, Rhonda.
Oh, what's that?
Do you remember how we have this belief that our worthwhileness depends on our achievements?
Yeah, I totally believe that.
Yeah, and Time magazine called me the most successful person in America this year.
Wow.
And but I understand you're kind of an average psychologist or something like that?
Yeah, I'm just an average therapist. I haven't written I have written some papers, but they weren't in peer-reviewed journals. And, I have spoken at a lot of conferences, but, you wouldn't really know that if you weren't in my field. But I haven't written a book. I haven't really.
Right. Well, to tell you the truth, Rhonda, the fact is my accomplishments are far greater than yours, right?
That is true, but geez, you sound kind of arrogant and conceited.
I just wanted to point out that how you and I have both agreed that our worth depends on our achievements.
Yes. Well, I'm starting to doubt that,
and my achievements are far superior to yours, sweetheart. So what follows?
You're a better person than me?
Yeah, I'm more worthwhile.
You're more worthwhile.
And I'm just kind of looking down on you. I didn't want to hurt your feelings, but I thought you should know the truth.
Huh. You're looking down on me, but I'm kind of wondering, are you happy?
Oh, yes. I love looking down on people and judging people. There's almost no one at my level now. It's pretty much just me and Trump up there at the top.
Yeah. You actually sound like a good partner for him.
Okay. Now we'll just stop. Who looked like the loony here?
You did.
Yeah. And this can be helpful. This is a silly technique, but it's to illustrate that. And then I always do a role reversal with the patient to make sure the patient plays both roles. And now you be the one at the reunion who's accomplished a lot.
Okay.
And now you have to argue that you're superior. Hey, Rhonda, good to see you here. I caught your picture on the cover of Time magazine.
Who are you?
I'm just an ordinary person. I was in your high school class, and I saw you come up to the reunion and with your limousine and all your handlers and bodyguards. And
I really don't remember you. I was very, very popular in high school. I was senior class president, and I went to the United Nations, and I was. I won the state championship, and I went on to the Olympics. So people like you, I could hardly even remember.
Yes, I don't think I actually asked you for a date once, but you turned me down. But you've accomplished so much since that time. I mean, you've become a billionaire, and you've patented things and won prizes. And I just want to tell you how proud I am of you and all you've accomplished since high school. It's neat that you came back for the reunion. But I had a question for you.
Well, I have a question for you.
I'm
what
just,
have you done? Can you match me at all?
No, not at all. But I had a question for you.
Yeah. Okay.
And I heard something about you through the grapevine, Rhonda, and I'm sure it's untrue, but I just thought I owed it to you to ask you because I couldn't believe that.
Could you hurry it up and ask me? Because I have other people I really must speak to.
I know there's about 50 people wanting your autograph in line.
Yeah.
But what I heard is that you were thinking that because you've accomplished so much that you're somehow more worthwhile than most other people, if not everybody, and that you're kind of looking down on everybody. And I couldn't believe that. So I just want to ask you that.
Well,
is that true?
That is kind of true. I mean, I have accomplished things that the average human being can't even dream about. So I feel like I'm so much better than everyone else.
Oh, I see. So you're kind of looking down on me and all the people here at the reunion right now?
Yeah, I am. I'm looking down on you.
Oh, and do you get a kick out of that, looking down on people?
Well,
is that fun for you?
It is a little fun. It makes me feel really good. Yeah, it makes me feel really good about myself. Although,
okay. Well, listen, Rhonda, good luck to you, girl. I've got some people and some friends in low places to hang out with now, and so I hope you enjoy yourself here at the reunion. Thanks for coming. I can tell you it's been a real eye opener, and I've learned a whole lot from you just now.
Okay,
have a good one.
Good. I'm glad I influenced you.
So, what was that one like for you?
You know, I got this sense of loneliness.
Yeah. Right.
Lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Like I'm so isolated.
So anyway, these are just different techniques. The idea with this one is for the person to see it's not really true that people who have achieved a lot are more worthwhile than others. You may be more worthwhile as a politician or more worthwhile as a financier, or if you're great at tennis, you're more worthwhile as a tennis player. But to think this somehow makes you a more worthwhile human being is a pretty malignant idea. And the idea of the feared fantasy is to see that that's true. But there was one person who firmly believed that some human beings are superior to others. Who was that? A historical figure.
Hitler?
Yeah. This was his exact philosophy.
Mm.
And so when you're into that way of thinking, that's the company you're keeping.
Wow.
You know the Jewish definition of a holy person? I'm not Jewish, but I went to a bar mitzvah in Philadelphia of one of our kids' friends, and it's really a neat definition.
What?
It's someone who treats other human beings and the environment and the world with respect. That's a spiritual person in the Jewish religion. And I thought that was such a beautiful definition of it. You don't have to be a rabbi or have gone to theological training to be a spiritual person. It's someone who treats others with respect and with love, if you want to add that too. And just I don't know, it's kind of corny sounding, but it had a nice ring to my ear.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, me too. This has been very enlightening already.
Okay, let's do another question.
Okay.
Al asked, Dr. Burns, can you help me with fear?
Yes, I'll give a quickie on this one. Last week, we talked about questions that maybe need to be tuned up a little bit. And this is the kind of thing. And I would just suggest to Al that you can read my book, When Panic Attacks, which is, there's 40 techniques there for dealing with fear. And I'd much prefer it if you read the resources. I've spent my life creating resources for people like yourself, exactly how to deal with fear, how to deal with depression, how to deal with relationship problems, and so forth. Also, you can go to my website and you can find a free anxiety class that shows you exactly how to deal with fear, the techniques to use, the tools to use, and many other free resources there. When Panic Attacks is a mass market paperback, and so it's very inexpensive. You can get it on Amazon. And then there's a free anxiety test you can take on my website, and you can use that to track your progress when you're using these other tools. And then if you're pursuing some of them, and then a specific question comes up, feel free to get back to me. But try to learn the basics on the tools I've already created. That would thrill me. Otherwise, it's kind of like I would have to start all over with you and go through all the things in the book when panic attacks, and they're already laid out for you, edited and written in crystal clear language. And so see what you can do, and then when you have a specific question, get back to me.
Okay, great. So I think we have time for one more, and this is from Khoi, who asks, how do you deal with people who gossip about your boss? Hello, Dr. Burns. Thank you for your time writing so many great books and creating this podcast. I am from Vietnam, and I know about you and your book thanks to the publisher for translating it into Vietnamese. When I read your book, it's very simple fact, but very true at the same time. I've read a lot of self-help books, but I find most would say about what I should become or what I should be, but they don't really show me how to do it. Okay. Your books show me simple techniques, but are very useful and effective. I really like your 5 secrets of effective communication because it helps me understand more clearly. One difficult situation that I don't know how to apply the 5 secrets to is when somebody attacks somebody else, but not me. For example, my colleague criticizes my boss behind his back via email message or even face-to-face with me. I'm afraid if I agree with her, my boss might think I talked behind his back too. Should I just keep silent for this case because she's not really attacking me? Another situation is when 2 people attack each other, like 2 of my staff argue with each other, and I can't agree with one side because it will make the other side get mad at me. What do you think, Dr. Burns? Thank you.
Oh, great question. And I'm glad that we're getting a little action in Vietnam. And it's thrilling to me when I get a great question like this from someone who's really thoughtful and, Khoi. So that's cool. I'll let Matt and Rhonda take their first shot at this one. And then I have a couple of ideas too.
Would you like me to dive in, Rhonda?
I would.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to go first. I can see why that would be an awkward situation to be in if a coworker is complaining about the boss. You might be afraid to align yourself with a coworker and disarm a lot because that would mean you were kind of siding against the boss. And so it could be a upsetting situation to be in. I could see that. One thing I'll sometimes say is I wonder if they've expressed some of their feelings towards the boss. If they're feeling angry with the boss, have they shared with them that the anger that they're feeling or the hurt or whatever it is that they're feeling, to try to take out the middleman. So I'm not kind of getting in the way between their having a conversation that could lead to a productive resolution of whatever conflict is occurring. I've rarely been able to influence people to change something about themselves or to think differently about a boss or anything like that. But I would sometimes just ask if this is something that they brought up with the boss, and if not, why not? Are they worried to talk to the boss about their concerns when it could be a very important concern that many people are feeling?
Gosh, that's so great. So you're saying instead of complaining to somebody else about the boss, you would ask your colleague, "Hey, this is such an important issue. Have you talked to him about it or her about it?" And Matt, what if your colleague says, "Well, no, I haven't talked to my boss about it yet. I'm talking to you about it instead."
Yeah, I wonder why not. Why have you not talked to the boss about this concern you have? It seems like it's pretty upsetting to you.
I'm kind of afraid to talk to the boss.
Oh, and what are you afraid of?
If I'm honest, they might fire me.
Oh, if you talk to the boss, they might fire you?
Yeah.
Oh, so do you also feel angry?
Mostly scared.
Scared and
yeah, a little angry. Yes.
Yeah, if they would fire you,
Yeah,
would
that would
probably
make
feel
me
angry
Yeah.
with them. And so here you're carrying around these feelings of fear and dissatisfaction and anger. And am I understanding you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm just glad we got to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So Matt, what would you say you did there? You didn't use all 5 of the secrets, but you used some of them.
Yeah, just
there's a main principle there that of not trying to help and not necessarily telling the person what to do and just using the listening skills without getting, just try to empathize, I thought.
Right. That's what I thought too. You did a great job with feeling empathy. And I was really feeling understood. And I liked that.
I liked it too. If someone did ask, what are the principles for talking to a boss if you have something negative to say? What do you guys have some thoughts about that at all?
You can say anything to anybody at any time, so long as you're using the 5 secrets, conveying respect, curiosity, understanding of their point of view and their feelings, as well as being vulnerable and expressing one's own feelings.
I like that. Suppose you're the one who has some negative feelings to express to the boss. How would you go about doing it? Let's say that Rhonda's the boss and you, Matt, are the employee. And this is beyond the scope of Khoi's question, but I think it's an interesting thing at any rate. What's the best way to express bad news to someone who's in a position of authority over you? Why don't you give that a shot, Matt, and Rhonda can give you a grade.
Sounds
about
good.
That.
Yeah, I'll have to try to see if I can come up with something good to be upset about that Rhonda did. I don't have anything real, so I'm going to make something up.
Yeah.
So Rhonda, do you have a minute? Could I talk to you about something that's been weighing on my mind a little bit?
Sure, Matt.
Yeah, so this is awkward to bring up because I have such tremendous admiration for you as a leader, and you've taught me so much and been so generous in just to work here at your company has been a joy and a privilege. And there was one thing that bothered me last week that I've been feeling kind of stewing over in it, and I realized it kind of made me feel worthless and defective because I had made this mistake on the line. I'd stacked up a bunch of trays where they shouldn't be, and of course, you remember it was kind of a big deal. And when you yelled at me and told me that I was an idiot, I felt really awful about myself, and I kind of a little bit pissed off at you as well. And I thought, Rhonda's the kind of person who would want that feedback and want a chance to talk about it, because I know you've got a huge heart. But then I thought, well, maybe you're still angry with me. Maybe that was such a goof up on my part, and I feel really bad about it still. But I thought it would just be good to talk about it a little bit. And I wondered if it made sense why I felt the way I did. And I wondered if you're still pissed off at me.
Great. Now, what grade do you give yourself on that, Matt?
I don't know. I think I was a little bit too much on my feels, but I could maybe ask Rhonda for feedback.
Well, I'm going to give you specific feedback, Matt, because last week in the Tuesday group, I wasn't specific and I felt bad about it for the entire week.
Shame on you.
I know. Well, I would give you an A for that. I'd almost give you an A+. You started off with very sincere stroking, and that made me immediately kind of melt. You said you admired me and that I taught you a lot, and that it was a joy and privilege to work with me at this company. And then that kind of opened it up so that I could hear anything you said. And then you said one thing had been bothering you that you'd been stewing over. So it made me very curious, like, what is this thing that you stewed over? And then you said an I feel statement. It made you feel worthless and defective. And then because you said it that way, and when you said, well, when you yelled at me, I felt you didn't say bad, but you felt another feeling. I didn't write it down. And you also felt a little angry. And then you followed that up with another stroke. Well, Rhonda would want that feedback because she has a huge heart. And then I felt like, oh, whether I wanted the feedback or not, I thought, oh yes, I have a huge heart, so I will accept this feedback. And it was sort of a great way of slipping in feeling empathy when you said, well, I wonder if you're still angry with me because I did make this big mistake. And I would love to know. Then you finished it with an inquiry about asking me if I was still angry with me and for me to give you other feedback about that situation. So it all felt very, like sometimes people complain that when they do the 5 secrets or when they hear the 5 secrets, it's kind of robotic. And what you did was very sincere, and everything just flowed so well together naturally that it would have led me to want to really have a great dialogue with you and come to a resolution.
Yeah, I gave it an A too. I just thought it was a magnificent example. Saying that the 5 secrets sound robotic is like saying golf balls aren't any good because they hook themselves into the lake.
Well, it's all in the way they're transmitted. I know I have sounded robotic sometimes because I'm thinking so like, okay, get this one, say this.
Yeah.
Especially when I was first learning them. So I just loved the flow and the sincerity.
Absolutely. And the antidote to robotic is using I feel statements. That makes you genuine and open, but it takes a lot of practice because it's hard to learn the five secrets. And if you want to learn it, you can, but you really have to work at it and practice. And I know you've been doing it for a long time, Matt, but I just thought that was a magnificent example of a very difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you, Rhonda.
Yeah.
Glowing as a result of your positive feedback.
I can see the glow. Cool.
Well, I think we have to stop at this point due to time, but it's as usual, it just means a lot to me to hang out with both of you and with all of our many listeners. It's just like a godsend, a miracle that we get this chance, and all of you were listening. And I just want to thank all of you very much for being interested in what we're doing. And I'm just so proud to work with you, Rhonda, and to work with you, Matt. And it's just a joy for me what we're doing right now.
Likewise, David.
Likewise. Every Tuesday, I pinch myself to make sure that I'm really alive and awake because I feel so lucky to be in the same sphere as you guys. I'm so honored to be a part of this.
This is so much fun. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.